Hello readers, this is the sixth episode of Comics Revolt audio review, and today I'll be talking about Grant Morrison's, Chaz Truog's, Doug Hazlewood's, and many other people involved in the first successful run on Animal Man. This is actually the comic that I believe, if my history is correct, made Grant Morrison famous in the USA. I mean, he'd done a bit before in England on 2000 AD, I believe, writing a comic called Zenith, and this comic launched his career in the US. In this review, though, I won't be talking about the three different volumes. I'll be talking about all three at the same time. So don't expect separate reviews, I guess. So to start off with, I guess it's fair to talk about Buddy Baker. He is a average family guy. You know, he's got kids and a wife living in suburbia, and what makes him different from everyone else, though, is that he is also a part-time superhero called Animal Man. And his power is he can absorb the abilities of any nearby animal to use as powers. So he could take the flight of a bird or the strength of a rhino or something like that. And he'd never been really serious about being a superhero before, but now he's beginning to take it seriously. And the series chronicles his adventures around the world, all across America and in South Africa, in apartheid, and it's a really interesting comic because it uses superheroes and the world of comic book logic, almost, to examine our own world. So Grant Morrison points his fingers at animal rights and human rights and apartheid and all this to really examine our own world through the eyes of a superhero. And we get to see what is wrong in our world through the eyes of a very moralistic character. So to begin with, he meets a character called Bwana Beast from South Africa, specifically from Kilimanjaro, and this begins his crusade against against cruelty to animals, and he really begins to take this seriously, and he becomes a vegetarian, and he even goes so far as to help eco-terrorists to stop the cruelty towards animals. So this is one main point of Animal Man. Another would be his fight later on in the series against apartheid and the breaking of human rights because of apartheid. And the third is Grant Morrison, like never before. I've never seen this anywhere else. He really pushes the boundaries of narrative fiction. So he really experiments with a comic book universe and its rules and logic, and he bends that logic almost to breaking point. But within the logic that Animal Man creates for himself, you still get this story that flows well. But this isn't a story that could be adapted to another medium. You can only read the story in the comic book form because of the specific comic book logic in it. So it really experiments with page layout and panel and breaking the panel boxes and everything. You don't see so much of this in Volume 1 or Volume 2, but definitely in Volume 3, as he goes on a search to, well, I'm not going to tell you in case you haven't read it, but something very bad happens to dear Buddy Baker, and he goes on a search to right the wrong, I guess. But really, this is just one of the best comics ever. And I think anyone who has an interest in the environment or in animal rights will really get a kick out of this, because I think this is the only superhero ever that really focuses on animal rights as much as this, you know. And really, it's quite obvious that it should have been done from the beginning if you have a superhero named Animal Man. I mean, you know, how is he going to continue his crusade of justice if he hasn't got any animals to absorb the abilities of, you know? But of particular note is the artwork. I mean, you got a fantastic gallery of 26 covers by Brian Bolland, who, although his style perhaps isn't as neat as it would be later, it isn't as detailed as it would be later. It's still recognisably Bolland, and each cover is absolutely fantastic in its own right. Now, the inside the artwork perhaps doesn't quite match up to Brian Bolland's artwork, but it's still very, very good. You've got Chaz Truog doing all the pencils, and you have a variety of inkers, mainly Doug Hazlewood, inking each story, and the artwork is just superb. It's not that it takes a bit of getting used to, and in the beginning, particularly, it looks a bit cartoonish and immature, I guess you could say. But as you go on in the series, particularly by the last volume, Deus Ex Machina, the artwork's it's beautiful, and it's really great seeing all the art really taking advantage of the comic book form and bending it as much as possible. So to wrap up, there's 3 volumes in the series that you need to get, collecting Animal Man issues 1 through 26. The first one is just called Animal Man, the second is called Origin of the Species, and the third is called Deus Ex Machina. Now, I don't think they say it online, but each volume on the spine does have a number on it, 1, 2, and 3. So I guess if you're going to a comic book store, if you're only going to get one or you're going to get all 3, you're going to know which reading order it's in. Online it's a bit more difficult to find. I think on Amazon.com it lists them in order, but Amazon UK maybe it's different. I can't recommend this series highly enough. The first volume was alright, the second was getting there, and then the third was an absolute blast to read. I couldn't put it down. As we see Buddy Baker, his character deconstructed from a peaceful family man to almost someone in such a psychotic mood and concentration of finding his goal and correcting all that went wrong with his life. So, yeah, I mean, I recommend this to anybody who's even got the slightest interest in the environment or in or in comics as a medium. It's almost a love letter to comics, I guess you could say. And I can tell every single one of you that the cliffhanger at the end and the ending of the story, no one will ever forget. It's so well done, and although it's been building up to it throughout the series, if you don't already know what's going to happen, which is kind of impossible considering, you type in Animal Man, the ending is the very first thing that comes up because it's just such a genius piece of writing. Then you're all going to get a kick out of it if you haven't found out what it is already. So yeah, I can't recommend this highly enough. Grant Morrison's a fantastic writer on this, probably one of the best comics of his career. I mean, my personal favourite was always All-Star Superman, but saying that, I've only read that in Arkham Asylum, so I guess I'm going to get into Doom Patrol next, and yeah, I guess we'll see, maybe week 3. So, that's it for today on Comics Revolt Audio Reviews. If there's any other graphic novels you want me to review, just send them to me by Amazon link through an email or comment below, and I'll happily review them. Okay, thank you, and thanks for listening.